Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, a simply nailogical podcast.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Cristine, again.
Today's episode is brought to you by Holo Taco?
Sure,
Sure, why not?
Yes, we just launched Holo Taco's third anniversary collection.
Very
the
cool.
Gala collection. It's the Holo Gala.
That's so fancy.
It was extremely fancy. You were there, the live stream, the live gala event.
Mm-hmm.
It was wonderful. I had so much fun launching that. It depends. Right now we're filming this on the Sunday. We still have stock on Sunday. I don't know if by the time we post this on Taco Tuesday whether we have stock or not, but check the website, see what's still available in case you missed it. But yeah, it's a wonderful launch. Thank you everyone who attended, including Menchie.
In her
bow tie.
Yeah, so the anniversary is always a good opportunity, we think, to do a podcast to sort of reflect on Holo Taco as a business, as a brand, and people always have questions about it, so we thought this would be a good time to do a Holo Taco themed podcast episode.
Yeah, it's like an annual thing at this point. 3 years, 3 podcasts.
Yeah,
on Holo Taco.
I think so.
Something like that.
So yeah, you put out a call for questions on different social media platforms. So want to just get right into questions?
Yeah, let's go.
Why
Menchie.
not?
Menchie's going to answer the first one.
All right, Menchie. Menchie, this question's for you. When was your first moment of we made it? As in you knew this venture was going to pay off for all your hard work, or have you not had that yet? Menchie, what do you think?
She's overwhelmed.
Okay.
She cannot answer the question.
Okay, what's your answer, Cristine? What was the we made it moment?
Well, I kind of have 2 answers to this question. The first is when we first launched in July of 2019, everything went on sale, the website went live, and obviously there's a lot of anxiety of like, is anyone going to buy this kind of thing? It went incredibly well, so well that we sold out of most of everything within 45 minutes. So that felt extremely exciting, validating, like relieving in a way. But I did not make it as a brand in that moment because I always had in the back of my mind that in influencer brands, it's oftentimes the case where the first release or first launch does really well, but you don't know how that's going to do over time. So for me, it was over time, I felt more validated that I think we made it, but maybe one more launch and I'll feel a little bit better. And then maybe the next launch, make sure that people are still
Is
buying
it always
Holo Taco.
one more launch?
Yeah, and that's maybe it's just because I'm incredibly like cautious in how I look at anything in the world, and I don't just take things for granted the second there's like one bit of good news. I want to make sure that things are proven over time. So probably a year of releases by our first anniversary, I felt way more confident, just in the fact that people were returning and that this wasn't just a flash in the pan, which was, I think, like any influencer's real kind of disaster nightmare that they don't want. And you hear about that a lot in brands launched by influencers. So
yeah, sometimes I think that's the business model. I think some influencers launch brand with the idea like they just want to make a big splash and they're not really committed to longevity.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. That's a business model where like that was kind of the point, and they didn't really plan past 6 months of business.
Yeah, I totally hear what you mean. I think when it comes to Holo Taco on a day-by-day basis, we are so often looking at like, what's the expression? We're looking at the trees and not seeing the forest. I find we spend a lot of time just on like, what is the immediate thing that needs to be decided?
Yeah.
Or
what's the next release?
What's the next release, the next decision?
Yeah.
How are we going to market this? Yada, yada, yada. That, I don't think we often take a step back to be like, what is this in a bigger picture sort of way? And I think that's a good thing mostly. It's sort of just, we're thinking about what needs to be thought of right now. For me, I guess the answer is there's been a few times where some like sort of arbitrary numbers have made us sort of take a step back and be like, oh, wow, like the magnitude of this is a lot and maybe more than we originally expected. Maybe
like 1 million nail polish bottles sold.
There was definitely, I remember the moment we realized 1 million bottles of Holo Taco had been sold.
Yeah.
And I think that was a moment that was kind of like, whoa, like just take a second to be like, that's a lot of nail polish.
That is a lot of nail polish.
That is a lot of nail polish.
Yeah, that's wild. And oftentimes people will ask me, like, how much more are you selling now than at launch? And I think, like, Although at launch we definitely didn't make enough. In retrospect, obviously, we didn't know because we had sold out in 45 minutes, and that's never my goal. It's safe to say, like at this point, I think it's well over 3 times as much.
There's like 3 to 4 times
sense?
as much inventory on collections now as there was early on.
Yeah,
I'd
then
say.
in like our first year of making stuff, right?
Yeah.
We were also limited in the beginning by like capacity issues in
Yes.
terms of like, can we make that much in preparation for a launch? So there were some growing pains definitely in the first year. And that's evidenced by like what was released in that year. So remember, we never had a full collection.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that feels like, man, 2019 feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, so we've definitely learned so much over the years and scaled up accordingly to meet the demand. And I think we're generally in a really good place for that.
Next one from Imiora. How has Holo Taco been able to keep prices consistent amidst increases in costs and supply chain, etc.? And will prices have to be increased in the future? Uh-oh.
Sad.
So Holo Taco has existed for 3 years, and we've never raised the prices on anything. As Imora seems to know, and a lot of people who have maybe their own businesses might know, is that the costs of everything in the world.
Everyone can relate
up.
that everything has gone up. Yeah.
Yeah, so inflation, the cost of shipping, the cost of goods, everything's going up. We have been having conversations behind the scenes about probably the need to raise prices at some point, and we're sort of talking right now about the strategy or when that will happen and how extensive that will be. So it is something maybe to put on people's radar now, that it is something we're trying to think of or are thinking of sort of actively.
Yeah, I think it's when I think about how you just said that it's been 3 years and we've never increased prices. I guess I never really like, yeah, you're right. But then again, most businesses, like how often do people raise prices just to keep up with regular inflation? But I think right now the world is dealing with like a much more drastic inflation reality than, was the case, I don't know, 5 years ago, where businesses don't actually increase prices every year, do they? I don't think that's like normal practice, but so many, especially in the cosmetics industry, brands I've already seen in the last 2 years, almost since like COVID kind of started, I've seen them increase prices, explain why they're increased prices. And I've seen this reality happen behind the scenes in terms of the financial picture for Holo Taco stuff. And I've, for lack of a better word, like put it off.
Yeah. The question is, how have you been able to? The answer is, it's been just getting less profitable.
It's
as
been
expenses have been
worse.
going up.
Yeah. I did not want to ruin the anniversary moment. I
With a
felt
price increase?
with a price increase. And but we have been having those conversations behind the scenes for a long time now. It's just a question of prices will increase at some point. I mean, this is like normal, but we've been pushed to increase them faster than I would have liked had COVID and the reality of the world never happened, for example. And so we're going to have that discussion and figure out a timeline and also figure out the best way to let you guys know how that's going to happen.
All right. Another question from Lena Lackiert. How hard is it to not be able to do everything yourself? Asking for a friend who struggles with letting go of some responsibility.
For a friend. A friend.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot we could unpack here. Obviously, anyone paying attention sees that Cristine has her fingerprints all over everything the brand does. And that's important to us because we really want the people who support you and support the brand to know how intimately involved you are in everything. So it's not like a situation where you're just like an influencer lending your name to something. You are really involved in business decisions all along everything. We're seeing your hands in the photos. We can tell that you've come up with names and descriptions of products. And I think that's really obvious to anyone paying attention, but we definitely don't want to give people the impression that you're doing everything yourself. Obviously, you're not.
Yeah, and I think what's really important is for anyone in business is to know that you can't be an expert in everything. So my expertise is in the establishing the creative vision for the brand, what I want, what kind of collections, what's the color story, how's it gonna be marketed, what kind of things do I want to do for customers, like what kind of rewards. We could talk about that later. It's things like that that I know that I'm an expert in, but I am not an expert in how to get nail polish into bottles on a large scale. I'm not an expert in doing quality and special chemical tests of nail polish. I'm not a chemist. I'm not
Cristine the Science Queen?
I'm Cristine the Science Queen, but I'm not a chemist. And I think it's really important to just underscore that while I own the brand, the Holo Taco, I do not put nail polish into bottles myself, and I do not tell chemists how to do that. We entrust in a business partner as a manufacturer to get all of that kind of side of the business done and done correctly.
Yeah. From Jen M, happy 3 years. Have there been any discarded concepts that you are willing to share? How do you choose which collection will be next? Excluding themed ones like anniversary or the holidays.
Ooh, tea.
All right. I can think of one. Do you have one?
One that we discarded?
A collection that was maybe going to come out and then
it
changed.
Didn't. Okay. Yeah. Gemstones?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. People will think it's like bad. Okay, let us explain. So there's always a few reasons why something doesn't happen. It's never just one reason. So often very complex and takes into account everything around it. But I once conceptualized a gemstones collection that was, hollow and shiny like gemstones. The first prototypes I got weren't exactly where I wanted them to be. I thought that it needed a little bit of work. And because I knew that it would take more time to get there, it would take longer and therefore would need to be released a little bit later. So that paired with the other reason, which is we had gotten feedback from recent releases around that time that our releases, we were releasing a lot, and I wanted to make sure that there was enough breathing space between releases. So that paired with the fact that the first round of prototypes felt like it was going to take more time, we decided to just drop the Gemstones collection. And I think that was supposed to come out before or after tea cremes. Do you remember which order?
Okay, yeah, I guess if we're going... The tea collection
tea
wasn't supposed to be a collection at all. It was just going to be, here's some crèmes that are tea themed.
Yes.
But we started to feel like we were really happy with how those looked.
And the gold topper. And then we were like, wait, so if it's a small crème drop, we should only be releasing 4. So we can't release a gold topper. But I was like, but it looked like it's so perfect. Yeah. And I want more than 4 shades to round out this the color story. And it just felt more and more like the tea crème should be its own collection.
Yeah, so tea crèmes wasn't supposed to be a collection box.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty rushed process, honestly, to get it there. But I know a lot of people are really happy with that one. We're happy with how it ultimately came out. Yeah.
But if we had also done gemstones, that would have been 2 back-to-back.
Well, no, we just wouldn't have done.
Or we wouldn't have done tea cremes, But tea cremes was like kind of organically shaping up to be such a good set.
Yeah.
That we were like, okay, let's just do that and drop gemstones. This doesn't mean that we're never doing what I was kind of picturing for gemstones. But what happens is like you just defer things, then you have other priorities, and there's more things that I want to do differently than that. So no, there's no imminent gems. I need to like just quell people being like, is that next? No, it's not.
Yeah. How do you decide which collection will be next? The other part of this question is I think people would be surprised how much we like agonize over just looking at a calendar, trying to figure out how things should fit. It's like playing Tetris.
It's like what we're doing right now for 2023 is...
Yeah, well, we have the first part of the year is pretty solid, I think. But yeah, there's definitely like, these are ideas that could fit somewhere. Sometimes like, oh, this only makes sense to come out this time of year. Mm-hmm. Then other times you have ideas that could work here or here. And I think
something may not be ready to
I know,
prototype
and then it's
in
like
time,
a domino effect of like, well, if this doesn't work here, then that has to move somewhere else. And it's we spend a lot of time just looking
it's
at a
frustrating
calendar.
because I also want so much. Like I want so many things and I'm like, oh, we need to do this. I have this idea. There's this and this. But then when you put everything I want in a calendar or everything the audience and the customers want in a calendar, there's too much. So we have to pull back. We have to say, no, we can't do this. Let's defer this, defer that. And that's also part of the problem. And then you also have to be like, this color story looks too close to the one that I wanted next, so we need to move it. But you can't move it to this season because that's not seasonal. So push it to the following year.
Yeah.
And speaking of just release cadence and not wanting too much coming out at once, it reminded me that we actually dropped something this year that was supposed to come out and was fully approved, but we just decided we'll defer it because we just don't want too many releases that close to each other. I'm really cognizant of that based on early feedback, based on just listening to the customer voice. We were supposed to have another small crème drop. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
In the fall. And we're not doing it because I didn't want to have another moment where it's like asking you guys to come back when I know there's a collection box, a very different collection coming out, sometime later.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a tough decision. And then like, I'm definitely going to see comments like, can you release these types of crèmes? And I'll be like,
It's like,
fuck,
I
was going to, but I took them out for everyone's benefit because I felt like it was too much. Yeah.
All right, next one from Indris91. Are you planning more collabs in the future? Could you tell us a bit about the collab process? Did you meet with Julian or did you manage to do everything online and just ship him the prototypes? Lots of love.
We love Julian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Are you planning? There are no collabs planned for this year,
Correct.
but it was a very positive experience. It was a lot of fun for us. The Julian collection felt different and fun in a way that I think we really liked. So it's definitely something we are thinking about wanting to do again in the future, potentially next year. How did it work? Did you talk about this on the stream at all?
I did, but we talked about it more in Julian's stream, so maybe we could reiterate a little bit. First of all, I loved working with Julian, and I think him specifically made it such a fun collab because he's super energetic and interested, and he's also very creative and he's an artist in his own right. Like he was doodling, like, what if the inside of the box was like this? So being able to collaborate with someone who's actually like an artist like that was really fun and inspiring for me too. I also had so much fun developing some of the launch content, like making TikToks with him or just filming our 2 streams together.
Yeah.
That was so fun to have someone alongside with me, like we were launching it together. And while we didn't envision collabs for Holo Taco in the beginning, I think we might have gotten this question in like the first podcast. I can't remember. Somewhere early on, someone asked, when's the first collab? And we were like, we're not thinking about that because we just have so much we want to do as a brand independently. I have so much I want to get through and I'm just not there yet. But I felt like in year 3, it felt right. And it felt really good to do it with someone like Julian, who was just so fun to work with. And
well, I think we'd only do it with like people or brands that make sense, right? I think there's some fatigue or people who follow the beauty and makeup space kind of roll their eyes when they see like makeup company collabing with KFC chicken. And you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of collabs out there and sometimes it just feels kind of forced. So I know we didn't really want to engage in that sort of thing.
Right. So as a result, we will not have frequent collabs. And when we do choose to do a collab, there'll be a really good reason or connection there.
Yeah, it should make sense.
Should make sense, yeah.
Amazingly, we did manage to do everything with the Julian collection like remotely. Like we were on meetings with him a lot through like video chats and things like that. But yeah, it was actually kind of a bummer that we never actually got together.
I know. One day we're coming for you, Julian. We're just going to come over and finally celebrate in person.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal that we didn't get together, but because he was very dedicated and invested, it made it really easy to work with him. So we were able to do a lot of like Cristine would receive the prototypes first, make sure they were to her standard, and then send it to Julian. So there was a lot of just like shipping things between the 3 of us and a lot of video calls figuring things out.
Yeah, and I think it's a super fun process that maybe people are a bit interested in. So like generally speaking, we kind of presented some options for formulas, and we asked Julian, like, what kind of formulas do you want? What kind of colors do you want? And then
He had a strong idea
and
of
then
color
he had
story.
a couple
Yeah.
strong. He shared this in his stream, but I'll just repeat it a little bit. He made 2 color stories about what he wanted and kind of let us know what formulas that made sense. And it was clear to us that he really was interested in crèmes. He just loved the Holo Taco crème formula. So that's kind of where we landed there. And we kind of all reviewed his few color storyboards, and he felt strongest about the one that he landed on. And he already had some shade names. Like, so when you already
sure.
know the shade name for the color, like, it's already good. You know, it's in a good place.
Yeah.
So then the lab and the product developers would develop a range of colors around the color that he'd selected, because it's always, you know, it might apply a bit darker on the nail, might dry a bit lighter. There's all these variables. Maybe he wants a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler. So they would send, first I would get them all, as Ben said, and I would test them just for like opacity, consistency, that kind of thing, and make sure that the colors or the formula is something I would sign off on. And then we'd send the approved ones to Julian, and he would get to review them, tell us what he likes. If there was a little tweak in the color, then we would do that. He requested all the wide brushes, for example, which is something we did for him. I remember asking that we send him swatch wheels, because I didn't think he would like have those.
Yeah.
So like we sent him prototypes with swatch wheels so he could play and compare a little bit easier, kind of like how I do at home. And then it was just a bit of a back and forth if there was like a few revisions after that. And then the same kind of discussions would happen for packaging.
Yeah. So I know, because we know what it's like to be, or you know what it's like to be the influencer on this side of a relationship, we were super cognizant and sensitive to wanting him to feel like that it was his collection, and we really wanted him to feel good about it and make sure we weren't putting him in a position where it felt like he wasn't in control
Having
over what it
say,
was creatively. So if anything, I think we may have put a lot of pressure on him to really let it be his, right?
Like when I asked him to write the shade descriptions.
Yeah, right.
I was
Like,
like,
that was maybe a lot, right?
sorry. No, I was like, hey, Julian, here's the template. Write the shade descriptions.
Just write the shade names. Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, being in what is basically kind of his position, that when you're coming out with a product, it's, if you write it, you know what you wrote and you feel you're saying what you want to say. So while it's like stressful and you're like, fuck, I gotta like, this is going to be on a website, I have to describe it. Yeah. You know, like we helped him, of course, and gave.
Of course, yeah. But I just know, we know like one of the worst feelings as a influencer is to feel like a company is just trying to use you to make money and doesn't actually really care about you or your fans, ideas. Right? Yeah. So if we swung as far as possible away from anything that would make him feel that way. But in a way, I feel like it kind of put him in the driver's seat, and he's like, I don't know if I know how to drive this car, but let's do it, right?
It was amazing, though.
It went really well. Yeah. We were very happy with it. And yes, Julian and Rome and his team are great to work with, too.
Yeah, and we are considering other collabs later next year. Put it that way.
All right, Faith Moorhead, what has been your favorite collection to launch thus far? Not your favorite just strictly polish-wise, but what was the most fun to mood board and plan and test before releasing? What collection was the most fun because you didn't think we'd see it coming? Okay, so there's a few things in here. What was the most fun in like the product development phase, I guess?
The most fun, but also the most annoying for product developers was the remix collection.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Because by definition, it required mixing pigments that were included in between 5 and 7 nail polishes, which means like that could be 10 to 20 or something different pigments in one bottle of nail polish, which is very annoying to do from a manufacturing and production standpoint.
Yeah, it sounds kind of straightforward, but it's not just a matter of like equally putting the 7 different.
And you have to make sure you have all of those, whereas normally you're just looking for like the core 4 or 5 or whatever pigments. So conceptually and creatively, I loved the remix concept. Yeah. I think it was so fun, just like, and very me. kind of in a chaotic, like just throw everything in a bottle. And what color is it? It's all purple.
It checked a lot of boxes, the different formulas, the empty bottle being like a creative thing, the sort of YouTube tie-in, that idea of mixing
The
everything
CD
together.
collection box.
Yeah, and the fact that that spoke to the branding, but also just made sense with the sort of music theme. That there was a lot that just sort of felt right about that collection.
Yeah. And then for the second question, what collection was the most fun? Because I didn't think we'd see it coming. I think the Gala collection.
There might be some recency bias here,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But that was so fun. I think people expect me just to do like the most hollow and sparklies and rainbows, for example, in a bottle. And I really wanted to make a different moment for our anniversary this year. And I always kind of had this like, what if we did a black, white, and hollow? Or where the polishes kind of look like a gradient, but they're all different, exquisite finishes. It just feels a little bit different, a little more elevated for Holo Taco. So that was Holo Gala that I don't think people expected until they saw the teasers and like,
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
then it was easy. But before that, you're probably just like, they will just throw every type of hollow in a bottle. Where I wanted to create a little bit more of a sophisticated, exquisite picture with the black, white, and hollow. And I had so much fun at the gala. The live stream.
That was a fun launch.
I
yeah.
dressed up, and I feel like it's a different look, but it's still so fitting for Holo Taco. They all slot in very nicely into our existing catalog. Yeah.
Yeah, the bow ties were nice. I remember for a long time we had this penciled in as the black, white, and hollow collection.
It was the grayscale collection.
Oh, okay. Was that what it was?
We just like internally it's been called the grayscale collection because I didn't really have a name.
I
I,
thought
was
it was-
just like, just refer to it was just easy to call it grayscale because it was shades
I
of
thought we were for a while we were going to call it black, white, and hollow, and it's just like that's
Yeah.
just too long.
That was
a
also
name.
a concept copy. Yeah. It was just easier to have like one word because we also wanted to call it like the third anniversary.
Yeah.
So the Gala collection. It's the Holo Gala. It's like the Holo Jubilee, but better. That's not
Sure.
a thing.
From Meredith Rinaldi, what was the hardest collection so far to make creative-wise, and when are we getting the Ben Vacation collection?
So remix, as I just said, was the
Okay.
hardest to make. Vacation collection.
Is it going to be called the Ben Vacation collection?
The Bencation.
Ben gets a vacation collection.
Ben Voyage.
Terrible.
Is that a shade name?
Okay, that shouldn't
This
come
will
up.
only work in inner circles. Do you want to tell them the truth about hypothetical vacation
What's
collection?
the truth?
Well, the truth is we have a concept for it for a long time now.
But it got shelved.
It got shelved? Why did it get shelved, Ben?
I can't remember. It got postponed.
Because
or-
we had too many releases during a
Oh.
season that you would realistically release a vacation collection. You can't
You
release
could take
that
a
at any-
vacation any time of year.
I know, but in a consumer landscape, like not really. You know, people aren't feeling that when it's, you know.
Maybe one day we can all dream.
Yeah.
From HH Completes Me, would you ever do more cremes and unicorn skins? I know cremes are not very Holo Taco, but the cremes are so good. Would you ever do more warm tone cremes like reds, pinks, and oranges?
Cremes are Holo Taco now. After 3 years and much customer feedback, our creme catalog, we have 20, is it 25 now? Because Party Wine Purple. Yeah, so there's 25 cremes, and we've gotten excellent feedback on our cremes.
Yeah.
Ever since tea cremes, I think, really solidified it as fundamental to the brand. And not just because, like, you know, all nail polish companies make cremes, but because it gives you something to layer our 18 now special effects toppers on top of.
But I want to push back on this idea that I know whenever we release cremes, there's always a few people being like, cremes, that's not Holo Taco. Like the very first collection had cremes in it because
Yeah.
of that idea of the creme
Layering.
being a base upon which you could layer something. And we are really proud of the creme formula. So like it has a place in the brand. I don't think it's like I don't think we would want it to be in a place where like every collection is just cremes. Like that's not the idea. But yeah, I think we will see more cremes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. But I did this stat like a few months ago. I can't remember. I'd have to refresh my memory, but it was something like 75% of everything we released is specialty, whether topper or like hollow, metallic,
Multichrome,
multichrome,
metallic,
whatever.
yeah.
And then a quarter, like 25% were crumbs. So I consider that like not like drugstore brands at all, which are
No.
vast majority crumbs. Yeah.
And yeah, people can look at the catalog and see where there might be some gaps.
And you get the freedom of choice. I think that's the other thing. There's a lot of customers who were really interested in the tea creams collection, but they're not interested in a collection that's all hollow, just depending on their personal preference. Some people don't want blingy nails, and while I love, blingy, sparkly nails, it's okay to offer things that are for different people, I think. The variety is good to have.
Robin Nail Art, how do you ensure that the polishes are unique to the brand? I'm always amazed by the new collections, especially when there are so many brands, particularly more mainstream ones, which release many similar polishes.
Oh, yes, the challenge. Well, the first answer is that I am very particular about the formula and then the exact composition and color. And we are exploring moving forward now that we've kind of established like these are linear hollows, these are metallic foils, these are frosted metals. Moving forward, we're slowly going to start doing like some different type of compositions. I think you saw that kind of for the first time with the Gala collection. There was a new formula in there, and then our hollow glitter had different types of glitters in there. So we're going to play around a little bit more in effort of increased uniqueness. But I think in terms of colors, I often see this feedback. People say like, I haven't seen a green screen color in the drugstore ever. Even though it's a crème, it's a really unique color. And I think I maybe intentionally choose colors that I don't think are as average in the drugstore, right? Because, yeah, not that like there isn't a green in the drugstore, but I try as much as possible while also considering, offering a distribution, a good variety, to pick colors that aren't as normal, like duct tape gray. Like that's not an average color.
Well, like I think a big, fundamentally Holo Taco, part of your goal was to make accessible just better quality nail polish than they find in the drugstore.
Yes.
So that was a big part of it. But I think what really comes to mind here is like, there's a reason in the drugstore you're just seeing some colors over and over again. And it might just be because those are just more popular
Sales
colors to just a very general audience. But when you see like a wall of pink at the drugstore, those big brands are like in Walmart or wherever people buy nail polish in stores. They're not thinking like, oh, I need to make sure someone wants to buy all these different nail polishes, right? I know for us, like for Holo Taco, the returning customer rate is something we're really proud of. There's people who put in that first order, really like what they get, and they want to keep purchasing from the brand. So what they want is stuff that is new and different. Whereas, if you're just walking into a store and you see a wall of pink, you're going to get one pink. And then they just want the next customer to come in who also wants a pink. They're not worried about someone who wants to buy every new polish they come out with, right? So I think we have to think very differently about the distribution of color and newness and uniqueness.
And that's an excellent point. Also, when you consider the existing Holo Taco catalog, is everything that we release next needs to take into account what we've previously released, which gets harder and harder over time.
Hard, yeah.
Because, if we want to release a certain linear hollow polish, then we need to make sure that there isn't not only a linear hollow in a color close enough, but also another formula polish that's like very close in color, because some people perceive that to basically be the same, even if there's a formulaic difference in like the type of finish it is. So it's much harder as time goes on to make sure that like there's definitely nothing that looks similar. So that's kind of an additional challenge into just like conceptualizing a collection for what it is, as 5 polishes could look beautiful, but then cross comparing it to our entire catalog to make sure that nothing feels too similar.
All right, next round from Diti Goyal. How do you decide what formulas to pursue? Specifically, I wonder about the decision to develop a reflective topper, how much of that was influenced by nail polish trends, and why the brand has taken the time to develop that formula, but say not thermal or magnetic polishes, for example. There's a lot we probably shouldn't say about this.
No, I think it's a fair question. I do see questions from people saying, how come you aren't doing X, Y, Z?
Sure.
I'm surprised Holo Taco hasn't chosen to do these special finishes. And I think the first thing you need to know is it's not just like me saying I don't want that. Okay, there's plenty of really cool special effects stuff that you might have seen elsewhere, but there's good reasons why Holo Taco has not come out with them yet. And I think, like, while technically some pigments might be accessible to us, there's so many tests and procedures and processes that anything new that we'd be introducing to the customer, that it has to go through those before we can release it.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons we work with the manufacturer we do is because we have a good understanding with them about how important innovation is to the brand. And we're able to have questions about, what is new, what's out there, what could we release. But we also really care about making sure what's going into bottles of Holo Taco meet a rigorous standard for the customer. So, like anyone can go on the internet and probably find like websites where you can order pretty crazy looking pigments, and you could buy that and at home put it into a bottle and put it on your nails, and maybe you don't really care what's actually in it. But when you're selling a lot of nail polish to people, you really do have to care and have a responsibility to make sure you vet and have a good process in place to know what is going into the bottles of your product, right?
Yeah, there's a responsibility there. And ultimately, it takes a lot of time and consideration, because we can't just do maybe what you've seen, different smaller brands do, for example. Or we wouldn't choose to just do something that we haven't properly vetted and made sure is good to go.
Yeah.
That's all.
From Roni Koivu, from my point of view, you've chosen to do more limited editions rather than discontinuing less successful products. What has led you to this solution? Is that true?
No.
Is the premise of that like?
Yeah, but I understand that people always remember the thing that caused the most stir in the comments, or, so that's kind of, I guess, from your POV. But I did the math earlier. I think of all the polishes we released, over 100 now, different shades, 19% of them were marketed as limited edition. So basically the vast majority, 4 and 5, are not limited edition. Now, some of those might be seasonal, like the Christmas glitters are seasonal,
Sure.
so those aren't technically limited edition. So generally speaking, we haven't wanted to make most of our stuff limited edition. And when it is a limited edition product, there's always a logistical reason or another reason that makes sense for that product. So for example, when it was a collab,
Yeah.
I think there's like some IP and issues.
There's legal reasons.
There's legal
why those
reasons
are
why
usually-
it's, and that's why you see so many, like when makeup companies do a collab with someone, it's a limited edition stuff. So there's that reason, but that was just a new reason. And then other reasons can be like supply chain pigment related reasons. Say it's something that's really rare, but also knowing that we would need it in the quantities that we need to keep restocking it is kind of a comment that I see people misunderstanding a bit, because they'll say like XYZ smaller nail polish brand has a pigment similar to this and they're not limited edition. How come you are? Well, it might be a different quantity. And if we don't think we can reasonably keep stocking it, then we might have to make that decision to just make it limited edition.
I remember there was one product early on that we had no intention of making limited. And when we went to make a second run of it, the pigment we got from the supplier was totally different than it was the first time.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is the same. They claimed it was the same thing when it wasn't.
But right. So that made us more, we need to consider this, and we kind of have to make that call. If we're releasing something where we know that one of the multiple pigments that goes into a bottle is going to change, and the supplier says like batch to batch, it's going to vary a lot, or they may not be able to make more, we kind of have to take that into consideration. So with that in mind, we try and pick moments that make the most sense for limited edition products. So that's why so far, other than the collab, it's been just my birthday
anniversary and birthday,
and
right?
anniversary.
Yeah.
That's been limited edition. And then seasonal stuff is kind of a new category that we have based on a number of reasons, including some pigment limited availability, because I want very specific colors in holo glitters.
And even with the limited edition stuff, in some cases, if we can bring it back, we're interested in using the loyalty program as a
yes.
way of sort of, listening to the customer voice. If there are some products that we can bring back, should they enter the catalog?
We've done that with Got Cake and Everything Taco.
Yeah. So like one thing that sort of gets me about this, and not complaining or anything, but my perception is there are a lot of companies that release things. They're available for, a certain amount of time, and then they maybe sell out. And the company doesn't necessarily tell their customers that it's going to be there forever or not. Mm-hmm. I feel like you've been like really transparent with people about, expectations about stuff being a limited edition or not, just because you want people to, you want to share as much as possible. But to me, I almost wonder if we sort of set a precedent for ourselves that's hard, because could we not have just released a collection, been like, this is the collection this season, and
not said
and just
anything.
not say whether or not it's permanent or not?
We have this conversation all the time. I disagree with Ben, because I think that customers, and we've seen this, for example, with seasonal glitters or with frozen bananas, they want clarity. And if they're like, hey, customer service, can you tell me if this is limited edition or not? And customer service is like, I don't know, check back to find out. Then that's even more frustrating.
I get that.
So that's ultimately like why you have to pick. And it's really hard to even say these are seasonal, because people are still like, well, what does that mean? Exactly when will it be available? And it's like, we don't know yet, because there's X, Y, Z factors. And I think that the last thing I want to say about this in terms of why things are limited edition is we're at 105 polishes now. Whereas in the beginning of Holo Taco, we had way more flexibility to decide like just what should be limited edition because of pigments availability or whatever. Now we make and need to keep replenishing too many polishes. We're getting to the point where we need to consider that not everything that we've ever released can be available at all times. So we will be considering like which SKUs should be discontinued. Potentially, we've already discontinued one. And people were upset at that, to be honest. So it's incredibly challenging. But the reality of the business is there is no reasonable way we're going to be able to keep every single thing we release in stock in perpetuity. So having things like limited edition collections just helps from a manufacturing and planning perspective to know that it's going to be released and then it's gone, because we need to move on. We need to make more room for literally space for more polishes and also like freeing up the space for the manufacturer to start filling new bottles of nail polish with the shade that we're coming out with next. They can't keep going back to, oh, we have to restock this shade that was released 2 years ago that 42 people want. Like, it's just not realistic. And I wish we could. And I try a lot to, can we just please just restock everything always? But yeah, I have to come around. And I hope that our customers do too, to the idea that that's just not going to be possible or reasonable.
Yeah, but the customer voice is important. Like, we want to hear what they do and don't want, and it helps us make decisions about what should stick around. But you're right. Like, you discontinued the least selling polish
literally
in our
the
entire
worst seller
catalog,
polish,
and people were like outraged over it.
Yeah.
So,
and they thought that I did that for marketing, but I was not. I was actually just being like, FYI, we're discontinuing it.
I hear it's hard to be transparent without
People
seeming like you're
perceiving it as-
engaging in like sort of FOMO marketing, which is
So-
something we are really sensitive to, I think.
In terms of the like older polishes that were released years ago that we may or may not restock, if they're on the website, there is a new feature that we released like a month ago where you can hit the notify me button and put your email in. So if there's a product that's still on the website that hasn't been restocked in a while, honestly, go do that, because we are going to look at that and evaluate on a seasonal kind of basis, what do we bring back and when, and then also the Holo royalty members will have more of a say. But I think that we're probably going to leave that towards more like limited edition stuff, so it's a more meaningful input.
While we're talking about website stuff, I know a lot of people were mentioning things like wish lists and things like that. We hear that feedback. I think this year, loyalty alone and a few other things sort of like took a lot of priority and time and thought on the website, but we know there's other ways we could improve the website too.
Yeah.
Next one from Zamo Idit. Any existing plans for more frosted metals? I appreciate the mixed formula approach. Like in this collection, and would love a few more in here and there.
The answer is yes. Justice for frosted metals. Okay, can I
There's
just
like
tell?
one. I don't want you to over.
You just said it. There's one. There. I
Okay,
guess we just said
next
it.
next
There's
question.
one coming.
Okay.
One more.
From PDX Nail Things, how did you design the rewards program? It's so good. Thank you, PDX.
Thank
Nails.
you.
We we had so many conversations. About
It
the
was
reward.
really hard, actually.
It's a good example of one criticism I think we can have of ourselves is that we overthink some things. We definitely overthought the
But
rewards
it's
program.
important.
I'm happy. We're happy with how it turned out, but I know we really spent a lot of time wanting to make sure it felt fair to everyone, and it made it more confusing than I think some rewards programs are. And we've sort of seen this in that you've had to explain to people sort of how
Yeah.
it makes sense and how it works because we wanted to reward people who had bought in the past. And we wanted to put them in categories of having certain benefits based on past behavior rather than starting everyone at zero. But then there's certain things
yeah.
that just have to start at zero. So
Yeah.
we tried really hard to juggle all these balls. And I think we came out with something that people seem to like. And I mean, it's early on, so we're still, we want that feedback too, right? But yeah, I think it made it kind of confusing and something we spent hours and hours just debating how to do it.
Yeah, even things like the redemption value for points. Like, there's so much math and financial projections and estimations, honestly, too, that goes into it to figure out what discounts, what free product value can we offer based on which tier you're in, which requires how much annual approximate spend to make it all make sense so that we can give you guys something that's like actually of value, it feels good to receive, and still make it a sustainable business, which is incredibly even more challenging in the context of what we answered earlier about literally everything has gone up in costs and we have not yet increased any prices. So introducing a rewards program, which is basically like giving away free stuff in a way, there's a lot of math and challenges that go into it. And I was absolutely fighting my hardest, like, how can we make it better? Like, how do I give everyone everything? And then the other thing that I would add to this is in addition to, like a birthday gift or free product codes or exclusive sales where you get more off or that kind of thing, I wanted to think of what else we could do that's not just that would show Holo Taco customers or the ones who've been there, like, with almost purchasing every collection, what else they would find of value. So that's where we have things like exclusive content coming soon that I have to make, and then exclusive input, which I think is super fun. So any of the previous polls we've done at the community level, like vote to bring back or vote on things, we're going to give that just to the tiers. Yeah. So we'll do that. We got to work on that and developing some stuff, including potentially like making and designing their own custom polish. But
Saying that?
I am not announcing that yet because they will know first when that is officially launched. But there's a few things that got to happen, including like, where does that fit in the release calendar? How long in advance do we need to solicit input? Yeah. So, okay, I won't speak too soon.
No, but it's really fun, this idea of like getting that sort of community feedback or feedback from people who have been the most committed to the brand.
And I want to involve them. And I know people want to be involved. I could tell from like my streams and everyone or in the SimplyPodLogical Discord, everyone's like writing all their ideas. Yeah.
All right. And last one from Checkout Gee's Nails. Do you intend to keep growing indefinitely in terms of creating new polishes, or do you have a goal to reach and then stop? Cristine, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh my Lord.
God. I think I already mentioned earlier, like, we so often find ourselves just thinking about like what is right in front of our face rather than thinking bigger picture or longer term.
I mean, I just want to elaborate on that. I don't think that's totally fair just in the sense of the brand vision. I do have a vision for the brand and had since the beginning that was very like, I want a catalog where you can create your own Holo Taco combo. That was always what I've loved about nail polish, is being able to kind of customize. And that's always been in the back of my mind, or not the back, the front of my mind with every collection that we release, including ones that aren't toppers. I'm like, how will they look under toppers though? So yeah, that's kind of the global brand vision that's always there. I think you're just kind of talking about the immediate decisions that need to be made.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I'm also reacting to just the word growth here, because I think people who follow like, business channels on YouTube or like business TikTok, I think there's this idea or assumption that everyone just wants to, like, you just want to grow and get bigger. That's what capitalism's all about, right? You just need to make more money.
Yeah.
You need to have more product. You want to be in more stores. And I just have found that that's not really our motivation at all for how this has worked. It's always been about wanting to give cool product to people, or, wanting to feel like it's good and fair to the customer. It's not about making more money or having more product or just growing for the sake of growing.
Yeah, I hear. I also don't want to pretend like obviously Holo Taco makes money. So we just want to acknowledge that. It's not like we're doing all this and running negative, because that would make it not a sustainable business at all. I just think that I feel a little bit like an outsider sometimes in the business industry when I hear people, or like other brands who use Shopify will issue, like press releases about their 10x revenue last year. And they just like cite all these metrics about how to increase your revenues year over year, because that is their primary goal. Whereas that's not how I think about it. Now, I'm not saying that it's not good if you have more customers this year than you did last. Of course, that's amazing and allows you, to do more with your business and release more stuff. But it's not the way that I go into this. It's not the way that I started this. And it's not the way that I really like to drive the business and the thinking behind the brand. On that note, it does, like, one strategy that I see a lot of brands, including in cosmetics, use is a strategy to maximize revenues where you release things more often. So there'll be like 1 week, company X releases like a makeup palette, and then like 2 weeks later they drop one lipstick, and then 2 weeks after that it's like, oh, here's some brushes for that makeup palette we released 4 weeks ago. And that is a strategy to maximize revenues, because you have customers returning to your store more frequently, or new customers because there's more moments to be spoken about. That's not the strategy that I want to take or have taken with Holo Taco. And partly based on feedback from people. Remember, early on we released the birthday polish, which ended up just being one item.
Polish, yeah.
And people felt like, A, it wasn't worth the shipping, and B, you're asking them to come back for a collection, a few weeks later. So why not either group it up or spread them out more? And these are types of feedback that I take really seriously, and I absolutely hear you. So even our release calendar isn't the ideal one to maximize revenue. But I'm choosing that on purpose, because I'd rather you have a good experience when we release a collection and feel like there's a lot and a good amount of good stuff going on that's worth the shipping, that's new stuff, and that you have some time to breathe, and that we're not just going to like, oops, we released one limited edition shade 2 weeks later. Like that's not my plan. And I feel like in this industry, if I were to explain this to someone who is works in cosmetics and maximizes revenue, they'd think I'm an alien.
Me.
Yeah.
You are an alien.
Well, yeah. No.
Yeah, I guess this question was really more about just like the catalog of products. And I don't think there's any shortage of like cool products and ideas you have that could be in bottles of Holo Taco. But I think we don't think of it in that order. We don't think of it, we need to grow, let's think of what could go in the bottles. It's, do we have cool stuff to go in bottles that justifies the more stuff coming out, and not just releasing stuff for the sake of releasing it either.
Exactly. It's what do I want, and can we do it? And is the calendar, does it feel good for the customer? For always looking at it from the customer POV. It's how is this going to feel when it's received and it's launched?
Yes.
All right.
Take me to your leader.
Menchie. Menchie's gonna evaluate my performance after this.
Oh, good. All right, Menchie, are we done here?
Menchie wants her a
Menchie
second
wants
polish.
attention. We have to wrap up the podcast. Menchie wants a second polish.
I just want to say thank you, honestly, to all of our listeners who are just tuning in to, be inspired, or who are creators or whatever.
Or just doing the dishes and
or
want
just
something on in the
or
background.
just painting your nails and you're like, I just need to throw something on. No, but thank you to everyone, and mostly my audience who's followed me since before Holo Taco launched, watched me launch Holo Taco and participated in that with me, and has stuck with me and the brand, for the past 3 years. It's amazing how many people continue to return and shop everything, and the excitement I see in the comments, and when you guys start receiving the gala collection in the mail. That is the most exciting and rewarding part to me, is seeing everyone get it and get excited over the next one. So it's been such an incredible thing to do, and I just thank everyone. Menchie's like literally in my face. Your butt is in my face. Menchie, I thank everyone so much for their support, and I'm just so happy that you fucking love the nail polish.
Yeah. Well said, Simply.
All right, everybody. Have a really happy Taco Tuesday.
Yes, please do.
Paint your nails with a Holo Taco this Tuesday.
It's a Holo Taco Tuesday. See y'all later.
Thanks so much for watching. Bye.